Aviation is a science, and science relies on procedures. Ignoring the procedures can lead to disastrous effects. But what happens when the books are wrong? What happens when you have technicians who think they are smarter than the book? Aviation, like religion, has commandments. This is What Does the Pub Say?
6. What is a aviation maintainer's Bible?
Oh, MVP. That will be the technical manuals.
Tech manuals? What are those? I've never heard of such a thing.
Oh, that would be the one thing that people say they use, but they actively ignore.
Oh, fancy that. So there's written procedures on how to do specific tasks on the aircraft and or other components? Yeah, what a concept. Right? What a novel concept. Assuming that they actually have all the procedures documented properly.
Oh, weird, right? It's almost like someone gave you the answers to the test of what you're actually supposed to be doing and how to do it.
Of course, unless those technical writers didn't capture all the appropriate data, so it's known in the manuals that there are some issues that aren't correct. That if you do throw this switch, you'll burn up this component. Well, why is it still in the manual? Well, we know it's an issue. So we've submitted a Tech Pubs change. Well, when did you submit that? Well, about 2 years ago. What? Why hasn't it been changed up till now? That's a great question. We don't know. Oh my God!
It's like why do we still have this?
And then that knowledge has to be grandfathered in, right? So your Bible is your Tech Pubs, but there's also some other Our Fathers you have to add into those Bibles.
And that's a big problem, because you say you have someone who's never done a maintenance procedure or any type of procedure before. Their first go-to is I couldn't figure out by use of common sense, so I'm going to read the manual, whether that be the technical manual or the owner's manual, the warranty, something.
Fault isolation, whatever, yeah.
Ooh, fault isolation, yeah. What is that? So they think that, hey, if I go to the manual, it's going to at least give me the how-to of what to do, right? In most cases, it is, right? Like my cassette player doesn't work. Okay, turn off power, eject the tape, whatever. This is going way back. Okay, I'm sorry for all of you. Like, what the hell is a cassette tape? Right? And
it's on the fish tapes,
right? Post 8-track, pre-CD. Yeah, one of those.
Or what's even before that? Good old-fashioned paper.
Woo! Back in the papyrus days, that's how we used to entertain people.
Maybe even back in sometimes they actually had stones. They would just carve it in on stones.
Right. Can you imagine back in those times, like that's how you would quote unquote watch a movie, is just have someone in front of everybody and he's just kind of like reciting poetry in the form of a story to people, like the Iliad or the Odyssey. It's just literally a dude standing in front of everybody and he's like has a harp and he's just kind of rapping the song, or the story.
Yeah. I mean, you had to use your imagination for everything. I think with today's technology, the imagination's gone because we got so much entertainment right in front of us.
Tell me about it, man. Like I see today's kids, like
I can't wait till the Tech Pubs become YouTube videos.
That would be crazy, right? But then you're gonna have you're gonna have those YouTube videos that have the reacts to the Tech Pubs, that would have more gain than the actual pubs themselves.
You get all these views. Hey, this video got 1 million views for how to install a tire.
Here's my react to this video of how to install a tire. It gets more views than the instruction video.
The actual instructional video. So everybody watches the react video to learn how to change a tire.
Right.
That's funny.
Isn't that crazy? Like that's how a lot of videos are today. They just gain popularity because it's just somebody's reaction to how something's supposed to be or how they interpreted it. Like Ryan's toy review, for instance, right? Like here's a person who just basically breaks stuff. And yet he makes a lot of YouTube videos about it.
$23 million that 8-year-old made last year.
Craziness, right? So imagine, man, if that was like a publication, like the guy doing the review gets more views and likes than the actual video that it was originally for. Wild.
Oh my God.
Wild. Right?
Yeah. It is wild. It is wild. So with Tech Pubs, like we said, like you have to operate on those, and changes do come out, and you have to make sure. That's typically your documentation department would ensure that those are. Actually, that's not right. Your documentation part wouldn't make sure that's right. You typically your maintenance shop or whatever shop that manual affects, their lead or their supervision or management would ensure that those books get updated properly.
Right.
In a perfect world.
Right. And or in some cases, like especially in the military, you have two divisions whose sole purpose is to make sure that's right. That being quality assurance, funny concept. And then you'll have another department, which is called the Department of Safety and Standardization. Wild, right? You mean there's a department whose sole purpose is to standardize stuff? Wild. And yet stuff still goes missing or stuff is written wrong.
Yeah, the one that blows me away is that the procedures that are known to be wrong, and that if you follow the manual to the T, you will actually destroy the equipment that you're working on. But it's known, and so people say, hey, remember on this, you can't actually throw the switch that way. When it tells you to throw the switch that way, you actually have to throw it the other way. How is that change let go for so long? I mean, how has it not been updated in that day? Like, why isn't there a tech writer on site? And oftentimes, I've even seen it in the old paperback manuals. There'll be like somebody would take a pen and line out the affected area, and then you'd see hand scribed off to the side the actual right way to do it. But if you were somebody who didn't know any better, you were a brand new guy, read the manual, and go, somebody's messing with me. And by writing that in there, so I'm going to do it the other way and then mess up the thing, not knowing that the hand jammed information was actually the right way to do it. But that's often so many times that's how things are done. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And you picture, you put yourself in the position of the new guy or the guy who's never done this before. He's taught that if you go by the book, you can never go wrong, right?
Oh yeah, that's pushed into their head day one.
Yeah. So then you're thinking like, well, I followed the book step by step and I still smoked it. I didn't do nothing wrong. And then, but yet here they are. It's like, you smoked it. You broke the part. It's your fault. And then he goes like, well, the publication's wrong. And then they turn back around and say, well, you should have known better. How should I have known better? I'm new. I've never done this before, but yet here I am.
Right. You told me to follow the manual and you knew what task I was doing. If you knew that was wrong, I forgot until we had the issue. And then it jogged my memory of, that's wrong, but you're still messed up. You should have come and talked to me first. Well, how would I talk to you about a problem that I didn't know existed?
Right. Yeah. How would I know it was going to be a problem? Well, you should have known. Like, I'm sorry I didn't take mind reading as part of a community college class. They didn't give that to me in my orientation when I first started this job.
Yeah. What's that fancy word for mind reading? Anyways, whatever. Moving on.
Yeah. So that sounds really counterproductive, right? Like, follow the pub, you can never go wrong. Follow the procedure, you can never go wrong. And then you do, and it ends up breaking something. Like, shite.
Oh, clairvoyant. I think that's the right word. And if I'm wrong, deal with it.
It's the third eye. That's what it is. It's the third eye. For all you psychics out there, it's the third eye. So yeah, like there's a problem he didn't know, and then you're kind of putting the finger on him, like, well, you should have known. How the hell should I have known? And so you would think there would be some kind of mitigation, some kind of way to stop that from happening, where there'd be like an email, some kind of poster or some shit, like, do not do this. This is wrong. Until we get it fixed, don't do that. But yet they just let it ride. Or say the person who knew it was wrong left and everyone else didn't know about it.
A single point of failure, you say?
Say it ain't so.
And that stems from people not relaying information on to others because they view it as, well, I'm the only one who knows this. And if I let everybody else know it, I've lost my edge and I'm needed because I know this information, right? Which is dangerous. That's a dangerous mentality to have, and you're gonna cause problems.
And that goes into that tribal knowledge you just said, where it's nothing's written down; it's all word of mouth. We're backtracking back to the caveman days where everything was all passed by word of mouth or chiseled in stone somewhere where no one can ever find it, and you're just expected to know that you're part of the tribe and you're supposed to get that information, but no one thought it necessary to tell you. And then now you're stuck, like, and let's assume those guys left and you're stuck here with that no knowledge and the book doesn't say otherwise. So like, well, what the fuck do you want me to do?
Yeah, I can't work, but you have to get the job done. What am I going to work to? Well, just, I don't know, go get this person. They've done the job before and work with them. I can't sign it off in accordance with
him.
with John Deere over here. I can't sign it off in accordance with them. That's a no-go situation.
Right. Yeah. And I actually ran into situations like this. I'm sure you have too, where like someone pretty smart and senior tells you to do a procedure like this, but it's nowhere in existence in the technical publication or some kind of pamphlet, manual, or something. But he's telling you all this, like he's read it somewhere and like, this seems awfully convenient that you know all this, and then you go to sign off your work, and it's like, well, what do I sign this off to? Because I can't put your name, or I can't say by direction.
Oh, and that's when they come out and say, well, there's an engineering memorandum for that. The hell?
Where?
How do we have time to come up with an engineering memorandum, but not also fix the tech pubs at the same time?
Yeah.
Just sign off of this, and then that's also tribal knowledge too. That there was an EM for that. Like, why isn't the shop that's affected by that sitting down with their people? Hey, we had a memorandum come out today. Look, here's the procedure. We know it's wrong. There's a memorandum for the time being till the pub's updated, and there should be then a board or something in the shop or a known place you can go research. Here's all the things that we know are problems that we're actively trying to fix, and here's how you would do this job in a memorandum, and you sign it off in accordance with the memorandum. But that's efficiency to its finest, and that doesn't exist in so many places. You mean like
an activity stand board? What a freaking concept, Yeah. Wow.
A novel idea.
Craziness. Okay, remember, we're patenting this, right? So we're going to make money off of this, all of you. we're pioneering something new. Now, that's assuming when something's wrong, right? There's so many different ways to go about it if there's a problem and you know it's wrong. Like MVP, you just said, like engineering memorandum, or say in the military's case, they call it inner rim changes, where like just kind of shoot this message or mail you this thumb drive, so you can make the change, and it kind of highlights it in red, kind of like what you said.
Yeah, okay.
But there's also times where the publication is absolute, like it's 100% right. Mm-hmm. There's no problems. There hasn't been any problems. It's been tested to be right. And yet you still find those people who think they're smarter than the book.
Oh, yeah, I can skip that step because, it's just unneeded. Like, I know more than that. The engineer who
what do you mean
designed this part, I know that I don't have to put grease on that. It'll be fine.
What are you talking about? It nowhere says that we can deviate from this. It says you shall being like the be all commandment in any type of manual. Shall means you will do this or shit will go wrong.
Exactly.
We'll clear it this one time. What?
Yeah, it's fine. Well, and as you know, many of the manuals are written to a third grade reading level.
Yeah.
And like each step is like, there's some steps you're like, okay, because anybody who would have common sense, right? Now common sense is very common, but you had any common sense and you kind of have a general idea of mechanical things, you're going to go, okay, yeah, I know I got to do that. I know I got to lube that. I know, but it breaks it down so far where you're like, remove 3 bolts. Remove safety wire, remove nut, remove, and it breaks it down. You're like, I know I got to remove the safety wire to take out these 3 bolts, so I can take the dust cap off, to remove the cotter pin, to remove the nut, so I can get the wheel off the axle. But it's broken down into each step like that, and you're like, okay. So sometimes it's like, yeah, I get it. So that's when people start, I know a little bit more than the manual, or I have some foresight to know where I'm going with this job, right?
Right. But then you get some who just like straight go a hard left away from what the book is trying to tell you. And for those of you listening, there's a reason why it's broken down to the third grade level, is because say you, the technician or the mechanic or the operator, you're doing this thing so many times, so repetitively, so often, that sometimes you get complacent and you skip steps or you forget steps, right? Like, and then you read the manual like, oh yeah, shit, I was supposed to take off those 3 bolts. Because I've seen time and again where someone was supposed to take off 3 bolts and they ended up unbolting the whole, or taking off the whole thing without the bolts being coming off. They're like, oh well, I just girt this whole thing up. Well, fuck. And then you look into the investigation of it and you forgot to take off those 3 bolts.
Yeah. So they pried the part off and end up shearing something in the process, and you're like, you didn't take off these things? Well, I didn't think I had to. They looked like they didn't need to come out. They didn't look like they were in the way of holding that component on.
Say, well, it looks like you don't need this job either, friend.
Well, yeah. looks like you're sweeping hangar floors from now on.
Right. It's clear as day. You will do this, shall do this. But again, like we said, there's going to be those who just feel so adamant about swerving hard left from what the books tell you. Now, granted, what you said, like some things are so redundant, but those redundancies are for a purpose. But then you have those who just straight up like, I don't care what the book says, I'm right because I know better. I'm like, well, maybe you should take that intelligence and submit it to the people who are making these things. So maybe we can input something better. other than you just telling me you are?
Yeah, or how about this one? How about in some of these manuals, they tell you, hey, why did you apply power before hooking up the ground power cables? Oh, well, I didn't think it would be a problem. I thought I'd just go on batteries and then apply the ground power and then turn on the ground power from there, and then it would just, it would take over the ground power, take over for I'm like, well, did you read because most manuals have notes, right, written in the top, like safe for maintenance.
Right.
What is
safe.
that?
Safe. What is that?
It's on the ground, safe enough.
Right.
But they have that, and it says, no, did you read the note? The specific software or the way the system is set up doesn't allow, you can't go on batteries and then you can't plug in ground power and apply ground power. There's another step where you have to go in and manually set it to ground power. It doesn't automatically take over. Well, but this other model aircraft, yeah, that's an older model. That doesn't apply to that one. This is a newer one. This is the new stuff. Like, that's why you got to read the notes for this specific manual.
So you can't pop the clutch on the automatic, friend. That's basically what you just did. You
tried to and watch this,
You just tried to pop the clutch on the automatic. That's basically what you tried to do. It doesn't work that way, friend.
Not at all.
Oh, man.
Well, what about you, Shoreline? In your field of expertise, what do you guys have for manuals, if any?
Really, I mean, we don't use a whole lot. The closest thing that I can come up with personally, I mean, other than, of course, like if you needed to look up a manual for a console issue, like if you had an audio console that was having issues and you didn't have support necessarily to call right away, it's check the manual, see what's going on. But for other situations, for us, it's mostly like stage, we call them stage Bibles, where this has all of your information for every band that's coming on the stage today. And this is something that we do for like festivals, where it's like you're working with 9 bands today. You have 15 minutes in between each band to get a band off and another band on and sound checked. And this is everything you need to know. Problem with a lot of the festivals that I work with is a lot of the times it's the bands filling them out themselves, right? So it's a lot of not legible information. It's a lot of just hand-drawn, this is what I need, and it's a bunch of information that I don't need, stuff like that. But yeah, in terms of tech manuals per se, it really depends on the situation. It's not something that we rely on heavily unless we're doing something like having to build a cable on site or having to modify something like that.
Is there something where, like, say you get a new firmware or a new console, say, and this just drops on your lap like a couple hours to a day before the actual event setup? Do they give you like some kind of like pamphlet or how to prior to you guys setting that up?
A lot of the times for us, if we are having to do firmware updates on consoles, it's generally something that we would do in-house anyways, because we would be, if we're having to, because here's the thing is, if we're working with a big tour, right, they're usually requesting specific equipment, so specific consoles, because that's what their engineers are familiar with, and we don't always have those in stock, so we have to rent them from somewhere else. We will not firmware update another provider's console, because they may have information stored on there that they don't want to have gotten rid of, unless we get explicit, instructions that it has to be this firmware. We will generally relay that information to those people before we receive the console, because there's some other responsibilities that go along with that. I mean, I've seen consoles get, I've seen $80,000 consoles get completely bricked because of a software update.
Wow.
So would you have, in some instances, like FSR or a field service rep come out and do those? They come out from the actual manufacturer of the console just to do specific firmware loading or specific tasks that they know that if other people do them who aren't familiar will probably brick the system. So
that's actually a really good question. So a lot of the tours that I have worked with, I'm thinking of one specifically that I worked with out in a county fairgrounds, and it was a really small show, but they booked it when they were super small, and then they won a couple awards and they got huge. So they had like their whole crew and awesome guys. But anyways, he was actually saying they were testing this console that had just hit the market, or but they had been on it for a while because that company reached out to them and said, hey, we'll ship you one of these, and they're from England. And hey, we'll ship you one of these, and let us know how you like it. If you need absolutely anything, just call us. And he utilized that at one point where it was like morning of the show or the day right before the show. Oh, my console had this issue, and they had a tech on a plane and a console with him shipping to them to be there the very next, like as soon as possible, like the next day.
That sounds like some of my experience in AOG. Hey, we have this issue with this aircraft, and we have a revenue flight in a day and a half, and we need it to definitely be ready by then. And so there you are getting a call at 11 o'clock at night. Hey, you got a flight at 6 a.m. heading across the country. Make sure you have these things, you know?
Yeah, and kudos to the people that do that work. That can be stressful, and it can...
Yeah, because everything's on you.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a service call and it needs to go now. And I mean, the show always goes on, as in my industry and in your industry, I'm sure. So
yeah, so like from in my experience, I've been a FSR before, right? And so because my company manufactured the part or was the sole expertise or had at least a known expertise for a certain components or whatever. So we would be on site for certain locations because we knew there were things that were more difficult to do and that we had specific training on that we wrote the manuals for that this unit might not do. So I know like a lot of military units will also have a deployed, typically civilian FSR from that particular company. And then when things go wrong, hey, the unit goes, hey, go get a hold of the FSR. Because that FSR is typically going to be the subject matter expert on that specific component and has the manual for that component that is not released because it's proprietary or whatever else. And they don't want just anybody going and doing that job. They want somebody who's had the actual training on that. So that's interesting.
Right. Yeah. And especially for like the expert or FSR or field rep, they're using publications and manuals that are granted only for them.
Yep.
That only they're allowed to do because they have certain certifications or certain vesting with the company that made it or whichever have you.
Or depot level maintenance certified, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So like in your case, Shoreline, we don't want the band member tweaking around with the console just because he feels he's not getting enough oomph in his mic or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I know lots of rental companies that I've worked with, they will actually put tape on the inside that if you open up the console, it will break and it will say this is now going to cost you this much money.
Yeah, tamper seal. Yeah, well, we have those all over the place on certain boxes, and Six can attest to this in aviation. There's all sorts of, especially electrical components. There's the void if broken seal. Yeah, because they don't want you in there messing around with internal settings. Oh, I feel like I'm not getting enough amperage out of this one component. I need to up the signal strength, and no, you can't be in there hacking around.
Right.
Now, do you guys, Six knows this, we have what's called fault isolation manuals. Do you guys also have those available to you for troubleshooting certain consoles or components in the audio field?
I don't personally have experience running through fault isolation manuals. I'm sure that they exist. A lot of the, that really gets down to if you have a severe issue with a console. A lot of the times what we have to do, because our industry is so just like last minute, just by nature. I mean,
sure.
If you've got a load in and you have a show that day, you need a as soon as possible, fix. It's generally okay. We'll call this company or this company and see if they have a console, and and I use consoles, but really this can be speakers. It could be literally anything, a cable, a specific cable, stuff like that. And it's a lot more of that. But when it comes to actually fixing stuff in the shop, you can find that information generally in their, in the main manual for the product.
Okay. Well, so Six, have you seen, right, talking about fault isolation manuals, obviously every manufacturer for every aircraft is some are a little bit better than others, right?
Right.
So there are some fault isolation manuals out there that has every little component down to circuit breakers and switches listed in the system. So start here, go to the source of power, right? Is there power coming to it? No. Well, there you go. All right, there is power. Okay, let's start going down the line and seeing where it's failing. And it'll tell you specific relays to check and say, at this relay, you should be reading this it should be closed at this point. Is it? No, it's reading open. There you go. Or whatever else. You might have a dead switch. But then there's some other ones that are like, and they're really branched off, right? And you got all these, they're really well written. And then you got other ones. It's like somebody drew a ruler, a straight line with a ruler. Did the part turn on? No. Power cycle. Did it turn on? No. Contact engineering. What was the point of that?
Or power cycle again. Take out cartridge, blow on cartridge, put it back in. Power cycle again. Like what?
Power cycle. Yeah. Perform 17 power cycles and see if its problem still persists. What?
Right? You guys laugh, but this is really a thing. Like some of these, like it's literally power cycle, take out the cartridge, blow on cartridge, put it back in, try again.
Like, have you ever seen the show? It's a British show. Have you ever seen the show, The IT Crowd?
I can't say I have, but I might have.
It's very funny, and it's an older show, but check it out. But the first episode, all they do is, "Hello, IT. Have you tried turning it off and on again?" Like that's their whole line when they answer the phone. "Hello, IT. Have you tried turning it off and on again?" That's how some of those fault isolations are. It's like, you didn't give me anything. Everybody knows to turn it on and off again.
Right. Now, I've seen some fault isolation where the troubleshooting step was, if there's a fault or there's a problem, you're supposed to power cycle it 50 times and see if it happens again. Right. Or power cycle until you see the fault happen again. I'm like, that
like
seems
we're going to induce another fault for a failed component at that point in time.
Yeah. Because like anyone who knows anything about electronics, the most violent times of that component is when it powers on and powers off. Because, depending on what it is, like say something as small as like a lamp, it goes 28 volts or 14 volts, or you get something big, like say a soundboard console where it goes 3-phase, 600 amps, and you power it on, power it off over and over again, you're going to blow it up. I was like, well, there's the fault. Like, was that the fault because it happened, or is that the fault because of you?
Yeah, did it happen the first time you power cycled, or did it happen on the 45th? Because if it only happened on the 45th, I'm going to say we probably killed that part. But then that's what to go. Yeah, see, that was the component I told you guys all along. It might not have been. We might have just forced it to kill itself, We don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah, Jurassic Park told us the same thing.
But the manual said to do that, and you're like, oh, God. When was this thing written?
4 or 5 years ago. Well, fuck, that explains everything. or vice versa. You get those individuals who think they're smarter than the book, where the book doesn't specify how to troubleshoot, so they just come shoot it in there with these wild ideas like, oh, just take this component and stick it in the fridge and see what happens. Like, what?
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
It's like, so it happened when
stupid.
So this part failed when it was cold. So it's warm now. So stick it in the fridge so it makes it cold again and see if that happens. Like, that is probably one of the stupidest things I ever heard in my damn life. What the?
You just want to go? Can we all just admit this is dumb for 5 minutes?
Yeah. So we aired out our opinion. Like, this is probably really dumb.
Like, I'll play along. I'll play along with your game. Fine. I like to play stupid games. Whatever. I was like, but can we just admit that we're all dumb before we play this game? I'll do whatever you want. I just want you to tell me that your idea is dumb. I want you to admit it to me. I'll still do it, but I want you to admit to me that it's dumb.
Like, well, it's not dumb. It's pretty damn smart. It happened when it was cold, so we're gonna make it cold again. Like, if it failed already, you putting it cold is not gonna make it duplicate itself.
Right.
God damn it.
Right. Oh my gosh.
The ambient temperature at the time was 30 degrees, not 0. I mean, God damn it. Jesus Christ, man. But I'm telling you, this is how some individuals do a troubleshooting step, especially if there isn't one in the first place. So they just shoot out these wild ideas under no basis whatsoever, other than, this sounds like a cool thing to do. Let's do that. And then if it breaks again, we know it was that. Like, well, what justifies you? Like, where's the science behind that? Where did that come about? What mathematical equation did you use to arrive to that decision?
Right. And so I did work for a place at one time where they built an aircraft from scratch, right?
Yeah.
And everything was new on it, and there were no manuals written. And oftentimes they would have us, the maintainers, write the procedures. Like, so as we would do a job, we would have to write down our steps that we would do. So we would do that, and then we would have another maintainer come up behind us and redo the same job to see if the steps that I outlined, right? So say in this situation, we're going to replace a main tire, and there's no procedure on how to replace a main landing gear tire. So I'm doing it for the first time on this aircraft. So I go out and I do all the steps, whatever it takes to remove and replace that tire. And I write down all my procedures. Then I go to you, 6, and say, all right, 6, go replace that main landing gear tire, follow these steps, see if it makes sense. And you might go through and say, oh, you actually missed to remove the circlip for the dust cap. Oh, great. Write that in there. And then that became the manual. And the same thing for fault isolation. We would run into issues, and we're just kind of shots in the dark, spitballing, trying to figure it out. And then we're sort of documenting at the same time. And then what we did fix the problem, that became the fault isolation for that particular issue. So what was the guy, Adam something from, they had that science show, they were based out of San Francisco. What the heck was that called? Mythbusters?
Yeah.
Mythbusters. Yeah, so he said, he had a saying, it was the difference between goofing around and science is that you have to write it down, writing it down. So that's essentially what we were doing, We're just figuring it out and writing it down. So that's how we did it for those particular platforms, because there was nothing in existence at the time.
But like with all things, especially when it comes to like an example like that, you guys had a plan. You guys had like a control versus what you plan to do. So you're not just shooting stuff in the dark and it's like, well, this looks cool, let's do that. Like, why would we do that? Oh, why not? I'm like,
yeah, because I think some of the things they do for writing tech manuals when they don't exist, or fault isolation stuff, is some people just like to hear themselves talk.
Oh my God, yes.
And in their head, they're like, oh, this is a great idea, and everybody should do this. Now, hold on. Now, I got a rebuttal to what you just said, and they don't want to hear it though. No. I'm right. You're wrong. Just sit down. And you're like, well, hold on now. Like, no matter how flat you make a pancake, there's always two sides. Let me give you my side of it here.
Thanks. Now I want pancakes. Let's all go to IHOP after this. But he's absolutely right. You would have those individuals who just so committed to their answer that they screen out any sort of arguments that counteract them. And usually it's someone who's pretty senior, or someone who has the certain title that they're supposed to be that smart. So when someone else that's on a different level than them says something to counteract them, they immediately think it's an insult to their intelligence. Like,
oh, they completely shut it down. Yeah, seen that more often than I care to.
I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm saying you may have missed a couple of steps here. Like everyone messes up math. I mean, take it from me. I'm a former Marine. I know what it's like to fuck up math. So,
well, I'm not a former Marine, and I still mess up math. I try to help my kids with their math, and I'm sitting there like, what's 5 plus 5? Hold on, 1, 2, counting on my fingers. I just want to double check and make sure I'm right.
Especially
before I give you the wrong answer.
Especially now with the hybrid learning. There's going to come a point where my kids are going to start taking math, and I'm going to really show how dumb I am. It's like, so when they fail the test, I feel we failed it together. Like, oh, fuck.
Well, or it's like the Common Core, right? The Common Core math. Have you ever had to experience that abomination?
I have to a certain degree, but my kids are still at that level where it's not that big of a deal yet.
So my niece, right? She's like, hey, can you help me with this math problem? Oh, yeah, not a problem. I said, and I showed her how to do it. And she's like, oh, but no, you have to, that's not the way to figure it out. I was like, well, I just figured it out. So that's the answer. And she's like, yeah, but you have to show it. The teacher wants us to show it. You have to figure it out this way. You have to draw this ladder out and put these numbers there. And I was like, well, that's going to take 30 minutes to figure out 5 plus 5. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But that's how she wants us to do it. And I was like, I don't know how to do that, because I never learned that. That's not how I learned to do math or whatever, and it's a whole novel concept. So, but then you try to talk to the teachers about it, and it kind of, what I'm going with this is I'm looping in with those people who fail to see others' perspectives or whatever else. Like, nope, it's Common Core, and this is the way it is. And you're like, I got you. That's one way to do it. But I've also found there's another way here that's more streamlined and a little faster, and we can get to the same place you want to go to in a shorter time if we do these steps rather than the steps that you want to do. And they're like, no. I'm right. I am king. Look at me. I'm the king. I'm the captain now.
Now, going on a little bit about the Common Core, I don't like it, but I understand why it's being pushed, because the whole idea of math in general, flash alert for a lot of people. The reason why they teach math is so you guys learn how to reason and deduce, right? Now, the ways that you and I and everyone born pre-1996 know that the way we are taught is pretty much the same way a calculator would figure it out, right? But so the Common Core stuff is just more along the lines of just another way of turning the wheel. That's pretty much what it is, right? Without the calculator. So I get it. I just don't like. It's just hard for us because it's such a totally new and elaborate concept. But that goes in the same way about these guys, the way they do their troubleshooting step. I think they just churn it out just to find another way to spin the wheel. I'm like, why are we trying to spin it this way? It's already been done. It's already been shown and proven, unless it's something completely different.
I think a lot of it's a hip fire reaction. I was the first to say that, hey, here's how we should come up with a solution. And look, I was the first one to say it, so now I look good.
Absolutely.
Right, and you're like, but you didn't. If you'd have just taken an extra 5 minutes to formulate your thoughts, Elmer Fudd, you could have probably not been foiled by Bugs Bunny. But here we go.
Absolutely. Now, here's my number one pet peeve in all things professional, especially when it comes to the manuals. It's when they say, "Well, this is how it's always been done," right? That is, I can't tell you. I'm raging right now. I'm about to flip desks because I cannot stand that statement. This is how it's always been done.
And like you said, maybe that worked for the time whenever this was written, whenever this manual was written. But times have changed. We have better test equipment. We have better support equipment. We have better understanding of that system or whatever else now, and that's no longer required. That steps or whatever no longer required. We need to revamp it. No, this is how it's always been done, and you'll do it the exact same way because that's how I did it in 1975. Yeah, but it's 2000. It's 2020. Yeah, but that's how I did it, and I'm your boss.
Well, my way's the way.
My way's the way, and you're like, oh my god,
oh Jesus, kill me now.
Hinder progress so much.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. Especially maybe it's because they feel progress is threatening them.
Probably because they can't keep they don't want to learn the new technology, but they're not to the point of retirement yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're just trying to survive long enough to get to retirement because they go, oh, good, I didn't have to learn all that stuff because they're already outmatched by kids that are not even half their age.
Yeah. And I feel this a lot, especially for a lot of people in certain managerial positions. Like they've been so far removed from the material or from the resource that they cling on to that olden, quote, let's say obsolete way, because that's the only way they know. And they don't want to sound stupid or obsolete to the other people. So they just kind of push that along long enough, like you said, just so they can inch their way closer to retirement or whatever their end goal is.
They worked a long time to get into that position of authority, and they don't want it challenged, even though in their mind, they're probably like, yeah, that's a much faster and better way to go. But if I admit that, then I'm admitting that this guy knows more than me, and I don't want to seem antiquated.
Right.
So,
yeah.
and in many cases, those old timers may have wrote the original manual to what he's telling you to work to. Back when that platform was new, he might have been the tech writer at that time and wrote that, or whatever at that time, and wrote that manual and said, "But I wrote that. You're telling me that I'm wrong."
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is with anything, especially when it comes to science. The only reason why things go on and stay relevant is because they're constantly changing. They're constantly accepting to change. You can look this up in Darwin's theory of evolution. It's not the strongest survive. It's the ones that are most willing to change. And you see this quite a bit, especially in nowadays, right? It's with 2020 upon us, and all kinds of different ways have to get invented for people to do things and or to do their job. Having meetings or whatever have you to go over new stuff is obsolete. It's non-existent because of the current situation we're in. So you don't just cease work because we can't do what we're originally programmed to do.
What's the Marine Corps slogan there? 6?
Oh, it's improvise, adapt, and overcome,
There you go.
and it's true. And you and I have practiced this, and Shoreline has done it too. Where there's going to be situations where you've never seen before, and you got to improvise. You got to figure out the situation with a solid method, not just hip firing and just shotgunning stuff into the mix.
Oh, you mean the old parts cannon?
Yeah.
Kaboom! Did that fix it? Nope.
Do it again.
Load up the cannon again with this part. Kaboom! Did that fix it? Nope. We'll just keep shooting at it till something works.
Yeah, or powered on, powered off 500 times. Yeah, that'll work. Absolutely, and that goes back to this is how it's always been done. That goes back to like procedures either being correct or being wrong, and a lot of times like that simple change where it's like it can be something small or something major. Unless that change was driven by the person who's always about this is how it's done, it doesn't happen, and that's all too common, and I can't stand that.
Yeah, it really does hinder progress. Going back to one of our original conversations about the manuals not being correct or up to date, and not jumping on that problem and updating things right away, it's because there's probably somebody in the chain that says, why do they want to make that change? No, it's fine. It's worked this way. That's another thing that frustrates me. We know there's a problem, and well, we've made it work for this long, so
Yeah.
why do anything about it now? Well, it's still a problem. It's still a problem, and it hasn't been rectified. It's just you're just saying we've allowed it to go this long, and it's I don't know. It's the progress really gets hindered.
Yeah. Or, they come up with those quote unquote life hacks, to kind of bypass the problem. It's like, well, you come to this problem, just do this. We're like, yeah, that's cool for like one or two times, but to consistently keep doing that, you're going to induce something and it's going to be bad really fast.
Well, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And oftentimes when these manuals are incorrect, it's just insanity. That's the only word you can use to describe it, because we don't want to change anything. We don't want to update anything. We're not willing to do it in a timely manner. So let's just go insane and continue to do it and continue to break the same stuff over and over and until the end of time, which is 2020. So that might not be too far off the way this year's going.
Right. Absolutely. And I can't begin to tell you. So to tie all this together and tie it all back, the publications for almost any job, especially for something as technically heavy as aviation, those are the law. It's commandment. It's the rule. It's almost as if God himself wrote it. And unless there's something completely off the wall wrong or missing, you will follow it, especially when it says something shall, caution, warning, danger. You must do this. Or
it's in that black and yellow caution box at the top of the page,
or red, whichever. Certain manuals are red. But either way, like you will do this, or the component or person that's dealing with it is going to get fucked up.
Yeah, potential loss of life if you do this wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Closing thoughts, MVP.
Yeah, like you just said, follow the manual. Unless you're one of the senior guys and you know that there's an issue with certain steps and you've done the proper steps taken to remedy, make sure the tech pub's updated. But if your place of operation is very slow in getting those updated, take the initiative and create a folder, create a document, create something where you are tracking all these changes. And then when you have new guys come through, or let's say you have a safety stand down day or whatever have it be, or a shop day, and you can use that and hand it out to all the new guys, all the people, and say, hey, look, over the last 6 months, here's the issues we found. They haven't been updated yet. We're working towards it, but it's a slow going process. So here's a copy for each of you. Don't just withhold the information to yourself. Disseminate it out and save everybody a lot of time, headache, money, whatever the case is, potential injury. Just do the right thing, take the initiative, and help your people.
Absolutely. And, first of all, you got to listen to what the books say, because that is written by people of higher intelligence for a reason. And if it's wrong, then at least implement some steps to addressing the problem, like i.e. what you said, like having some type of document or folder or what have you to address those issues.
You know what? And the step might be wrong because let's just say they took an older model aircraft and upgraded it to a new rev number, but the manual didn't get updated to remove the outdated component and add in the newer component, or maybe the component's just no longer necessary, so they cut it from the system altogether, right?
Right. Yeah. Or say like a different manufacturer or something like that, something along the line changed and is no longer applicable. But again, that goes back to what you said, like have some way of documenting the change and then disseminate that out, because a new guy comes along or someone who's never done this before comes along, and then they go to use the component or use that type of equipment, and they gird it up to the point of no return.
You know what? And by doing that, if you're your shop's lead or whatever else, or supervisor or manager, it's going to look good on you, because you're going to have the least amount of mishaps than other shops, and you're going to look way good in your executive's eyes or your leadership's eyes, because you took the time to make sure that all your people were properly trained and in the know. And then when promotions or whatever come down the way, hey, there you go.
Yep. And I'll say this, especially to the guys listening or the people listening, you got to be willing to accept change. You got to be. It's going to happen whether you want it to or not. And for those of you who feel that change is going to replace you, you have already answered that question, that you are in fact replaceable. So we'd like to thank all our patron supporters for making this show possible, like Erica Lamont, Mike Diltz, Thomas Conley, Laura Mans, Ryan Freshour. Thank you guys for all your support and patronage. And for all of you out there, if you like and support like our show, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/cancel for maintenance. Your support allows us to keep on making episodes, to bring on guests, to keep our gear up to date and up and running, and also allow Shoreline to be happy and keep on helping us provide the show for you. You check out our merch at www.cancelformaintenance.com. We got some sweet stuff out there for you guys that are in relation to the show. You can check us out at Facebook and Instagram for all future updates pertaining to the show. Facebook.com/cancelformaintenance, or Instagram at Kanks, CANX for Maintenance Podcast. You hear all latest updates. And if you have some questions or like to give ideas for the show, shoot us a line on those two handles, or at cancelformaintenance.com. Send us an email that way. Or if you want to be on the show, send us a line that way as well, and we'll do whatever we can to get you on the show.
Shoreline 6 MVP out.